Hello, everybody. We are back with light troubles because actually, let me put this down right here. This down right I hope you guys don't mind a little bit of loudness because the wind is going to be coming in. Allow me as I go into the live on my Facebook because that's also happening right now. So we get a little scruffy looking Josue today. Actually, let me do this. Let me see if I can do this right here. Oh, that's actually perfect. The screen is on my screen. Okay. Hello. Welcome back to another episode of It's a Matter of. I'm your host, Josue. Um, I know I'm a little scruffy today. Don't mind me. It's been a long weekend. Welcome back. As you guys know, it's National Financial Literacy Month. Me and my colleague Jim, me and my colleague Jim have been to a couple resource fairs already. One in Schaumburg, another one in I believe he did McHenry, and somewhere else. I can't recall. They're definitely on our Facebook page. If you're on our Facebook page, if you guys don't know, this is going live on YouTube as well. And if you guys are on YouTube, if you guys don't know, this is going live on Facebook as well. So if you guys want to interact with either or, just follow CCCS anywhere, Instagram, Facebook, or YouTube. And then you get to see me every Thursday. Not like this. I promise you. I usually shave. There was nothing really going on these past couple days. I was supposed to go to like a conference today, but then it didn't work out the first day. Like there was nothing really worth checking out. So then decided to postpone it till tomorrow. So, but anyways, I'm here. I didn't. No matter how it is, you guys know I do these lives from everywhere really. I was gonna go to the beach a little bit earlier, but then it rained a little bit where I'm at, and then so I didn't take anything on my stuff with me. So I'm just home. Regardless, that's also saving money because I'm not going out anywhere. I'm trying to save some money. Um, okay, jumping right back into what we were talking about. It is April, National Financial Literacy Month. With that being said, the first 2 weeks we've talked about intro to budgeting and then intro to credit. Basically, intro to credit, kind of like explaining how credit works and all that stuff. If you guys are on Facebook, these videos are going to be available for you for like maybe another 2 weeks. But if you guys go to our YouTube channel, you'll be able to find them there for Lord knows how long. Only YouTube knows how long. Maybe for a year. Then you'll see. You guys could go back after there's like 4 or 5 videos on our YouTube channel. I'm gonna sort them and I'm gonna put them. I'm gonna put playlists, and then I'll do like first quarter, second quarter, or third quarter, and then that way you guys can see the advance, or like maybe you guys can see how I changed too. I always like see the thing about these social media stars and like these streamers is that they're bringing you guys into like their life, and so you kind of see them progress through life along, kind of like me. So if you guys don't remember, I started doing these YouTube lives. I did them from my parents' house when I lived with my parents for a little bit. I started doing these Facebook lives when I was living in Jefferson Park. It was a tiny little apartment. I remember I used to live in a garden unit. It was a garden unit for in like a duplex. You know how some duplexes have well, duplexes have 2 levels, right? But then they also have like a basement garden unit type situation. That was me. I used to live in one of those, and but definitely fun. That was kind of like how I was able to get back on my feet because I was able to afford that rent. It was able to fit into my budget, and then I was able to buy the condo where I'm in right now. So that's kind of like the cool thing about this, and that's why I kind of want to keep track of this because I also want to evolve. I've been meaning to grow more with this channel. Now that I have YouTube, I kind of want to get into editing. Also, got to find the time for that. As you guys know, this is my second job. I always preach about always improving your current financial situation, and one way to do that, I always tell you, it's increase your income. Whether it's increase your income via your own job, your own employment, keep up with your deadlines, keep up with all your demands at work, be a good employee, get on time, Do everything right so that way you can get a raise. That's an increase in your income. Also, if your expenses are getting too out of hand and you don't want to cut any expenses, you could also increase your income by doing something else, like another job. This is my second job. I do this part time, and this is definitely a contribution to my income, so that way I could help pay my expenses. So there's all types of different side jobs out there. Uber, DoorDash, those are the most common ones that are very predominant in this current time and age. Babysitting, dog walking, such and such. So definitely, there's jobs out there for you. If you are struggling financially, maybe you look to increase your income that way. Bartender, I always wanted to become a bartender because I want the tips, I want the cash money. So that's also a good job. But nevertheless, like I said, since we're talking about National Financial Literacy Month, if you want to go back and see any of these videos, they're gonna be stored on our YouTube. So definitely come check us out on YouTube. Like and subscribe. Okay, like I said, the first week we talked about intro to budgeting, kind of like how I alluded to earlier, was my budget is changing every day. Not necessarily every day, but definitely changes often. It does not stay stagnant for too long because I've moved. I used to live with my parents and I lived on my own. I mean, I'm still living on my own now, but the difference in like what I paid in rent and mortgage, all of that differs. However, that's when I made changes to my budget. Also, when I finished paying off some debt, I made changes to my budget then. So that's all in all to say that everything kind of revolves around your budget. We always preach that here. And so in order for you to take control of your finances, take control of them by creating a solid and stable budget. That was week one. Week two, we tell you about the credit, kind of how credit works. Also, because part of your budget should not be debt. I should always clarify that. It should be good debt. So part of your budget is definitely going to have some type of debt in there, whether it is, your auto loan. Maybe you just bought a vehicle and you have a 72-month loan on it or a 72-month note on it. So that's okay. That's debt. That's okay. Mortgage, maybe you have a mortgage and you're going to be paying that off for at least 30 years. So that's also okay. The things we're starting to get like a little borderline okay, furniture, appliances, electronics like TVs, computers, all of that. If you need them and you're buying them on credit and you're paying them off within that 0% interest within that time frame, that's great. If you're buying everything all at once, that's kind of like getting on the not so great side. And if you're spreading yourself out too thin on credit, that's definitely not on the great side. So we talked about that last week. Talked about some good ideas on how to manage it because, again, yes, buying new furniture and new appliances and new electronics is good for the residents, but you definitely don't want to stack them all at once because that way you don't have to make as many payments. Okay, so with that being said, this week we're going to talk about savings basics because I like talking about savings after talking about debt, just because sometimes we get ourselves into a little bit of trouble, more trouble than we would like to get into, I would say, when it comes to credit cards, when it comes to debt. However, that's probably like the scariest part about it. The best part about this is that you could definitely get out any debt you put yourself into. So what does that mean? Is basically how I said it. Anything that you purchase on a credit card, you're going to have to pay that back, whether it's with time or money. So be conscious on what you're spending on every time you swipe your credit card because you're going to have to pay that back. This is borrowed money. This is not your money. So keep that in mind. Keep in mind the interest that you're going to be paying on these credit cards because interest ranges from the double digits, and it's always double digits from like 10, maybe not even 10. I think it starts on the low end, like 15%, all the way to like 30%. So be very cognizant of that. Don't miss any payments. Stay on top of your payments. And then develop a plan, cut some expenses and develop a plan to pay off the debt. However, like we talked about it last week, you cannot pay off the debt until you stop spending on it. Now, again, I know we're supposed to be talking about savings, but here's where the kicker is. Because if you do have some debt to take care of in your budget right now, and you don't have time, and well, not necessarily time, but is taking up a lot of space in your budget and you don't have the funds left over to save, you're finding yourself, saving very little funds because you're taking care of your debt. When that happens, then you definitely have to set up a plan to take care of your debt first, because that's just accruing interest, and you're paying interest on that debt. So the more interest you pay on it, the more money you're kind of throwing away. So once you develop that plan to pay off all your debt, and then especially with, like, if you bundle it into like one payment, like those payoff methods that we talked about, the snowball method or the high rate method, you have one, all of the amount of your budget that's going towards your debt. That amount is already spoken for, whether it's one payment, two payments, three payments, or four payments. All of those amounts are already spoken for out of your budget. So whenever you finish paying off one debt, you could snowball that payment into the next debt, and so on and so on. And then once you finish paying all of that debt off, you're gonna have this one massive payment in your budget, increase of income, because now you don't have to pay the debtor companies, like the credit card companies. Maybe you have some furniture companies in there. You don't have to pay them anymore. So this is definitely more income for you to use. Now, that's not to say save, the whole amount that you were paying these credit card companies. Let's say, for example, between all of your payments, you're paying like $900 to credit card companies. Okay, now within a year, you finish paying off those credit card companies. Now you have $900 new in your budget. So I'm not telling you to sit here and save all full $900, but it'll behoove you to save maybe like half of that. Like, you're already used to not living, or your budget is already used to not being with that money. So you could definitely go without spending an extra $900 a month. Now, I'm not saying you should do that. Like I said, definitely at least have, not necessarily at least have, maybe at least a quarter. A third would be $300. That would be a good savings habit. Although that's still too much. It also just depends on your budget. Maybe you've cut off some expenses to you're done paying off this debt. However, now that you're done paying off the debt, you have $900 extra. You may add to more expenses, and you're only left to save $100 after you pay yourself. Regardless, the important part is getting into the habits. So now we'll get into the savings week of Financial Literacy Month, because now that you found a way to get your savings back into your budget, finish paying off that debt, and then start that habit. No matter, like I said, if you want to use the $900 that I use, for example, like the entire debt that you're paying back these companies, or the entire payments that you were sending these companies, and you want to save that, more power to you. That'll just benefit you in the long run, I always get confused because the time on my computer is different than the time on my clock sometimes on my phone. So I don't want to go too long, but then the lifetime is different. Anyways, like I was saying, sorry, I lost my train of thought. But once you finish paying off your debt and you have this money left over and you start a savings habit, no matter how small it is, that's so good for your budget, because habits are hard to break. Whether good or bad, habits are going to be hard to break. So if you find yourself cutting costs and you find yourself maybe, you didn't sign up for two gyms, maybe you just stuck with one. Maybe you cut off streaming services and you only have Netflix instead of having Hulu and Disney and HBO Max and so on and so on. That should still be the good habits that you keep. Again, identify your habits, and the good habits in your budget, you have to enforce them. Enforce them by setting goals. Now that you have a savings habit in your budget, set a goal. Maybe you want to start off a rainy day fund with $500. Using the example, less than a third of the $900 that you were sending to credit card companies is $100. If you say a goal for $500 for a rainy day fund, then you're going to get there in 5 months. That's excellent, not only for morale boost, but also for budget boost, because then your budget will understand that you're able to save, that you're capable of saving, and it'll definitely help you save towards bigger things. So after you reach the rainy day funds, maybe you can start saving for an emergency fund. That's like maybe $1,000, $2,000, and then you'll reach there whenever you reach there, because you're saving $100 monthly. Saving strategies, we've talked about this before. Once you already have the money in your budget, once you have the ability to do your budget, the main thing that people ask me whenever they find out I'm a financial literacy educator, they always ask me, like, how do I save? If it's not about credit, if it's not like, how do I fix my credit? It's how do I save? How much should I be saving? What do I do with my savings? And the truth is, it all depends on your budget. There's different saving strategies. There's like percentage, like different percentages, like the 20, 30, or I think it's 50% needs, 30% debt, 20% savings, or 30% wants, 20% savings, which 20% might be a lot, maybe, or maybe 50% of your income is not your needs. Maybe some people need like 55% of their income. It all just all depends. That's what I always tell people. It all depends on your budget. Not every saving strategy works for everybody. That is very, very important here. I we know, there's a lot of people that do this finance talk on TikTok. I call it FinTalk. You're gonna catch me there soon. Don't worry. I swear to you, I'm gonna start creating content. I just have to get the content creator bug in me. But I have ideas. Anyways, a lot of people on this that come on live that talk about finances, they'll mention like a rule of thumb of like a 6 months of expenses in your emergency savings funds. Now, that might be a great strategy. 6 months of expenses is definitely a lot of money for me, and that'll just take me a lot of time to save. Definitely, maybe more than six. No, for sure, more than 6 months. It'll take me to save that. But that's what I'm kind of getting at. Not every strategy works for everybody. That might work for people that are very well off, and more power to them. I'm not in that category, so I gotta make things more realistic for me. So if that's what I always say, if you are deciding on how much you should have in your emergency fund, take that consideration into your own matters. Look at your income, look at your finances, look at all your expenses, and see how you would strategize around an emergency. My emergency funds consist of 3 paychecks because I know 3 paychecks will get me through 1 month of expenses, and then the extra paycheck will get me through like half of the month. But I know, being that I'll be in emergency, I'll save the extra amount, the extra funds for like because I won't be using right now. I don't use my full paycheck, so I have all those extra to cover whatever the extra half of the third pay or like the second month won't cover. And then after that, Jesus, take the wheel. My emergency fund will be dry. So don't get spooked if you do not have an emergency savings fund with 6 months of expenses. Do it all what makes you feel comfortable in your situation, what you're able to do in your situation. And again, you could come back once you, let's say, for example, you decided your emergency savings fund is going to be $1,000. Boom, you get to $1,000. Now you're saving for something else. Then you're probably saving for like a vacation, and then you go on your vacation. You're like, well, I already saved for a vacation. I don't want to take a vacation anytime soon. Let me continue to put money into my emergency savings fund, and you could increase that. And then once you reach a bigger amount, then you could transfer that money somewhere else where it grows on its own. So that's all to say, the habit is the important one here. Once you have that savings habit, once you used to living your financial life or living your life without your money that you're putting away in savings out of your budget, you're gonna do great, and then you're gonna be able to control your money even more at that point. And you're gonna have a safety net. That way, you don't have to use credit cards for emergencies. You'll be able to use your emergency savings fund, pay for the emergency, and since you already have a savings habit going, it'll refill on its own. So again, strategies. Find the strategy that works for you. Don't think about percentages. Maybe just add an amount. Maybe just be like, I want to save $10 a paycheck. Maybe $25 a paycheck. Maybe $50 a paycheck. Maybe $5. No matter what it is, as long as you get into the habit, Separate your accounts. Automate your savings. It's always good if you just automate it. Kind of like how retirement, kind of like what retirement accounts in your at your jobs, it's automatically, so you just contribute to it without you even knowing because it comes out of your paycheck automatically. So with that being said, maybe you automate your savings on your own too. You can make automatic transfers from your bank application as well. So keep that in mind. Last but not least, because I'm reaching my time. Last but not least, I want to tell you guys about starting savings accounts for your kids. Again, if you have kids, start with something small. You could even put a piggy bank aside and just add like $5 to it. As long as you get into a habit, that'll just benefit you in the long run, and then that account could become for expenses for your kid. And maybe you could even let them use it when they get older and teach them about money then, because that's what we're going to talk about next week. So, with that being said, all I've said today is please prepare your budgets correctly. If you prepare your budget correctly, you should have your debt taken care of, savings have it in there, and your necessities taken care of. And if you guys need help constructing a budget, please give us a call. Get in touch with us through all of our social media. Put a comment, put a like, send us a message, send us an email. It's really easy to find us. IllinoisCCCS.org. Bright days are ahead of us. I was feeling down this last week. That's also why I didn't shave, but the sun is so bright right now and it's shining and the weather's getting better. So my mood is slowly changing. But I wish you guys have a great rest of your week. I'll see you next week. And that's all. Have a good one. Bye-bye.